You have no idea how powerful you are, do you? The fact that you're still standing right now is not just luck, it's proof that you carry something rare, something sacred. Not everyone could have walked through what you just did and come out with their spirit intact. You were never meant to fit into their small boxes or play along with their twisted games. You were always meant to rise above it. And that's exactly what you did. The traps were set. The masks were on. The whole performance was ready to play out at your expense. But you saw through it. You felt it in your gut, in your soul, in that part of you that's always known you were made for more. That wasn't paranoia. That was power. And now, you're not just surviving. You're leveling up. You're rewriting the rules. And every eye that once looked down on you will soon have no choice but to look up. There was a moment not long ago when something in you just didn't sit right. You couldn't explain it, couldn't prove it, but you felt it. A tension, a shift in energy. Maybe they smiled. Maybe their tone was soft. Maybe their words seemed harmless, but your spirit flinched. That wasn't paranoia. That wasn't overthinking. That was your internal warning system firing at full capacity. And what you may not realize yet is that this instinctual signal didn't just save you from discomfort. It redirected you away from a planned collapse. Let's rewind. Someone resurfaced. Out of nowhere. Maybe it was someone you hadn't heard from in a long time. A sudden message, a call, a nudge that seemed innocent, even flattering. I was just thinking about you. We should catch up. Remember the good times? But here's what they didn't say, and what you didn't see right away. That message wasn't spontaneous. That invitation wasn't random. It was strategic. The one who contacted you wasn't acting on emotion. They were sent, chosen as the familiar face you'd be least likely to question. They were just the opening move in a strategy laid out long before the text hit your phone. Because behind them, there's a table, a network, a group operating with cold intent, reviewing your habits, watching your patterns, waiting for an opportunity to slip past your awareness. But they failed. Why? Because you listened to the unspoken. You trusted that whisper in your chest that said, "Something's off." You paid attention to the undercurrent in their voice. You noticed the subtle shift in their energy. That discomfort you couldn't explain. It was spiritual intel. What they hoped you'd ignore became the very signal that pulled you out of the snare. They didn't plan for that. They didn't plan for your growth. They didn't calculate for how much sharper your senses have become. They thought they were dealing with who you used to be, but you're not that version anymore. When your heart is full of God's love, it's a sign to give. By tapping the super thank you button and offering $100 or more, you become a vessel of His grace. Your generosity can change lives, reaching hearts you may never meet. You have a divine purpose, and this act of faith carries His light forward. Give now, and may His blessings surround you always. And here's where it gets heavier. This wasn't just manipulation. This wasn't just someone being messy or fake. There was an agenda, a plan involving precision timing, hidden tech, and a controlled environment. It wasn't a reconnection. It was a setup. And the one reaching out? They weren't alone. They were the point of contact for something far deeper, something rehearsed. They operate in packs, coordinated, quiet, calculating. They act friendly, but underneath that charm is a script. And you weren't the first person they tried this on, but you were the first one who didn't bite. And that's where your power shines. Not just in how you moved away, but in the fact that you didn't even need proof to do it. You felt the misalignment and honored it. That's not weakness, that's mastery. So let this be your reminder. Your intuition is sacred tech. built into you, customized for you. And it never lies. The more you honor it, the more clearly it speaks. And when others try to circle back with sweet words and second chances, you'll know what's real by how it feels. You're not paranoid. You're prepared. And now, so are they. Because they just learned what happens when they underestimate someone who's protected, connected, and no longer available for manipulation. Step beyond the screen. Join and help light the way for others. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. Imagine a seed planted deep in the ground. It's dark. It's lonely. It feels buried. But what that seed doesn't know is that it's not being buried to be forgotten. It's being planted to grow. That was you. They thought covering you in dirt would keep you down. They didn't realize that pressure and darkness are where roots take hold and where true strength is born. What they meant to suffocate you actually fed your foundation. You've been rising. And trust me, they noticed. Not just because your glow got brighter or your words became bolder, but because your very presence started interrupting the frequency of their control. See, when people build their identity around manipulation and masked intentions, someone walking in truth is a threat. And the moment your light got strong enough to cut through their shadow, they panicked. This wasn't just petty envy. This wasn't one messy person running their mouth. This was a full table meeting, quiet group chats, shared looks across rooms. They didn't even like each other, but they came together around a mission. Take you out. Because your growth forced them to look at the places in themselves they've been avoiding. You weren't just healing. You were becoming a mirror. And broken people, they don't want healing. They want silence. They want the mirror smashed so they don't have to see their own wounds staring back. But here's the truth they didn't count on. You weren't alone. That discernment you felt, that little nudge in your spirit that told you to step back, stay home, say no, trust your gut, that wasn't just instinct. That was divine strategy. You were being protected in real time. What they planned as a performance of your downfall became the stage for their own exposure. And now you're stepping into a new level of spiritual authority. You're not bitter. You're wiser. You're not paranoid. You're protected. The ones who tried to pull you down have only pushed you deeper into purpose. You were never the weak link. You were the one carrying the oil. Let them talk. Let them plan. Let them gather. Because every time they rise up, they only confirm who you really are. Called, covered, and chosen. So they got organized. And it wasn't loud or obvious. No loud threats. No direct confrontation. Just quiet conversations. Back-channel planning. Invitations that felt innocent. Messages that seemed casual. All of it engineered to put you exactly where they wanted you, somewhere unfamiliar, out of rhythm, and vulnerable. They suggested the group setting not to build connection, but to gain leverage. Think about it. You weren't just invited to a hangout. You were positioned. A location where you didn't know the layout, where you had no easy exit, where your instincts felt dull and your normal support was out of reach. They wanted you off balance. That was step one. Step two, lower your defenses. Not with force, but with subtle traps. Offer a drink. Start up harmless conversations. Joke about the past. Laugh a little too loudly. Then, when your guard dropped, they would shift. Mention that thing they know triggers your emotions. Use familiar names, old wounds. Set you off just enough to get a reaction, but not so much that others would see the trap being laid. All of it performed under the false mask of concern or just joking. And then came the final blow. The footage, angles planned, cameras concealed, timing intentional. You weren't just the subject. They wanted to turn you into a warning, to create content at your expense. But not the truth. Only a version edited to make you look unhinged, unstable, untrustworthy, withholding all the ways they prodded, pushed, and provoked. This wasn't about embarrassment. It was about erasure. They wanted your voice silenced, your credibility shattered, your name ruined in rooms they could never have entered without using you as the doorway. Their plan wasn't short-term drama, it was long-game sabotage, meant to isolate you from allies and cast shadows on your future. But let's stop here for a second and shine the light on the most chilling part. This wasn't impulsive. This was tracked, studied. You were under observation long before the first text hit your phone. They've been gathering intel like spies, watching who you talk to, tracking when you leave home, learning what makes you tick, what gets under your skin, what lights you up, and what dims your fire. Those accidental run-ins, staged. The people who always seem to overhear just the right thing, planted. The moments where you suddenly felt eyes on you, then brushed it off as imagination. It wasn't your imagination. It was surveillance. And yet, despite all their planning, you felt it. You knew something wasn't right. You caught the tension in the air, the mismatch between their words and their energy. You sensed the trap, and you pulled back just in time. That wasn't fear. That was wisdom. They built an entire performance around your fall, and it never played out because you were never meant to be the victim. You were built to be the reversal. And now, the curtain's lifting, and the plot is crumbling in front of the very people who wrote it. When your heart is full of God's love, it's a sign to give. By tapping the super thank you button and offering $100 or more, you become a vessel of His grace. Your generosity can change lives, reaching hearts you may never meet. You have a divine purpose, and this act of faith carries His light forward. Give now, and may His blessings surround you always. Underneath what looked like just another invitation, something didn't sit right. The tone was off, the timing too polished. You noticed a shift, subtle but undeniable, and while others might have dismissed it as nerves or paranoia, you felt it in your bones. Not just a vibe, an alert, a warning system ancient and unshakable lit up inside you. And that signal? It rerouted your entire trajectory away from a setup that had been months, maybe years, in the making. Everything was designed to look harmless. Smiles stretched a little too wide. Conversations built to draw out information. Praise that rang hollow. There was a script being followed, but your spirit wasn't having it. Instead of leaning in, you stepped back. Maybe you cancelled last minute. Maybe you said yes, then changed your mind. Maybe you went, but something in the air pushed you to leave early. Whatever the shift was, it threw their coordination into chaos. What they planned was precise, premeditated. A strategic dismantling of your credibility through manipulation, intoxication, and staged conflict, all to paint a false image. But none of it stuck. Their scene fell apart in real time. The tech failed, the energy dropped. One of their own cracked under pressure. The mask slipped, and everything they tried to orchestrate dissolved like fog at daybreak. But here's what matters. They weren't just trying to embarrass you. They were attempting a spiritual takedown, not just a smear, but an offering. They aligned with forces that feast on fear, division, and destruction. And because you carry light, because your existence reminds them of what they can't touch, you became the prime target, not for who you were, but for who you're becoming. Step beyond the screen, join, and help light the way for others. They moved with calculation, but you moved with revelation. While they used coordination, you relied on intuition. While they drew maps in the dark, you were already 3 steps ahead by instinct alone. That tightness in your chest, that headache that came out of nowhere, that restlessness you couldn't explain, that wasn't weakness, that was ancient intelligence locked into your DNA. That was guidance without words, and it saved you. Because when it came time to execute their plan, something slipped. Their trap misfired. Doors closed that were supposed to open. Vehicles didn't start. Flights were missed. Sickness came out of nowhere. Conversations turned awkward. Whatever cosmic intelligence was protecting you scrambled the signal and short-circuited the scheme. This wasn't chance. This wasn't luck. It was interception from forces you don't need to name to recognize. Forces that see beyond what the human eye can process. And those forces had already circled your name in gold and said, "This one's not for taking." You were never meant to be their casualty. You were designed to be their catalyst. You didn't just dodge their sabotage, you exposed the depth of their desperation. You didn't just escape, you elevated. While they were playing with shadows, you were moving with truth. And now, the truth has dismantled every lie they crafted, quietly, powerfully, permanently. This part of your journey, it's about to be satisfying in ways only divine order can orchestrate. See, while they were laying snares in the dark, they never once considered the trap would swivel. What they engineered for you is quietly circling back. With precision, they can't escape. That staged downfall they crafted for your life, it's making a surprise appearance in their own. Their secrets, the ones they thought were safely buried, are cracking through the surface. Conversations, whispered behind closed doors, are being repeated in rooms they never meant to reach. And here's what they never expected. Their own behaviors, their own intentions, their own schemes are becoming the headlines. This isn't karma as a concept. This is justice in motion, deliberate, calibrated, and right on time. Every move they made to destroy your name is now unraveling their own. Their plots are imploding, not because you retaliated, but because spiritual law cannot be bent in their favor. Every lie they spoke, every attempt to twist your narrative is now burning down the house they built on illusion. Not with fire, but with truth. And truth leaves no shadows for them to hide in. Let's talk about who you really are. You weren't pulled into this because you were weak. You were pulled in because you are spiritually armored in a way they can't decode. You carry a resonance that scrambles the signal of manipulation. They mistook your humility for vulnerability. What they didn't realize is that the moment they locked eyes on you as a target, the entire balance of the spiritual realm shifted against them. You weren't just walking through this trial for yourself. You were intercepting harm meant for others. You were stopping a cycle before it replicated again. And while they were trying to offer you up as an example of collapse, they accidentally triggered your awakening as a symbol of deliverance. Because your very existence disrupts their narrative. You're not part of the structure they understand. You don't respond with fear the way they hoped. Your presence alone rattles the scaffolding of their illusion. You became a mirror, and mirrors terrify people built on performance. They never hated you for what you did. They feared you for what you reflect. Your wholeness made their fragmentation visible. Your healing exposed their brokenness. Your light illuminated the corners they were desperate to keep dim. And now they're scattered, trying to rewrite a script that's no longer relevant. The performance is over. The audience is gone. And what's left is just them, facing the wreckage they called forth with their own hands. What was meant to silence you has amplified your voice. What was meant to humiliate you has confirmed your purpose. What was meant to isolate you has revealed your influence. You didn't just survive the ambush. You dismantled the system that allowed it to exist, quietly, powerfully, permanently. There's something unsettling about the way certain people bond, not through love, but through destruction. Your undoing wasn't just a goal, it was the cement for their collapsing egos. But here's what makes it more disturbing. Not every person involved in your targeting truly disliked you. Some were simply too scared to challenge the group current. They stayed silent, not out of malice, but because silence meant safety. And what does that reveal about their selection process? It's not random. It's never random. They tend to zero in on those who reflect the version of themselves they abandoned. When they see you, they see a reminder that it's still possible to heal, that evolution is real, and that truth shatters the illusions they built to excuse their own stagnation. Your transformation threatened their excuses, so they tried to erase the evidence of your progress by going after the one living proof they couldn't ignore: you. This wasn't chaos. It was a blueprint, an internal system, functioning like a hierarchy in a twisted theater production. At the helm are the strategists, the ones who rarely act directly but manipulate the stage from the wings, using status, influence, or leverage to pull strings. Then come the executors, the ones who plot and coordinate. These individuals, often driven by unresolved damage, orchestrate the operation with surgical cruelty. Beneath them are the messengers, those who make contact with you directly. They're often the most lost, chasing acceptance by doing someone else's bidding. And around all of it, observers, not involved directly, but close enough to cheer the show and fuel its momentum by simply watching. Everyone in this strange machine benefits differently from your collapse. The planners prove their dominance. The middle agents feel a rush from control. The footman earns safety by sacrificing someone else. And the crowd feeds off the emotional spectacle, guilt-free. But there's one miscalculation in this pyramid. You're not playing their game. Your foundation isn't built on approval, manipulation, or control. Your structure is sourced from realms they can't decode. They launch their attack using emotional tactics, social leverage, earthly influence. But this wasn't a battle of status, it was spiritual. And that's why, when their campaign met your field of divine clarity, it unraveled completely. Their entire architecture collapsed under the weight of what they couldn't perceive: protection that doesn't play by human rules. When your heart is full of God's love, it's a sign to give. By tapping the super thank you button and offering $100 or more, you become a vessel of His grace. Your generosity can change lives, reaching hearts you may never meet. You have a divine purpose, and this act of faith carries His light forward. Give now, and may His blessings surround you always. There are moments in life when patterns reveal themselves not through repetition, but through clarity. What just happened wasn't a one-off misstep. It was another echo in a series of calculated disruptions that have brushed against your path before. Some of them went unnoticed, others left their mark. But now, the fog has lifted. You've gained new vision. The next time it circles back, you'll be 10 steps ahead. This is how you prepare. Take notice when a ghost from another chapter suddenly appears, full of urgency, acting as though they never missed a page of your evolution. Be alert when someone insists on dragging you into environments you've never set foot in, places where you're unfamiliar with the flow, the exits, the alliances. Pay attention when a smile stretches too wide, when a voice feels rehearsed. That tension in your chest, that's not paranoia. That's insight, sharpened by experience. Watch for the imbalance in conversations, when someone probes deep into your world but remains a locked door themselves. That's a signal. Your internal compass has proven itself more reliable than any map. Let it lead. Don't doubt it. Don't dim it. Also, observe the arrangement. When someone begins folding you into group dynamics, scan the room. Who do they orbit? Who remains silent yet pulls strings? Patterns speak louder than words. What they didn't calculate was that this entire attempt would refine you, that what was meant to unravel you would instead activate something ancient and unshakable. You stepped into the fire as one version of yourself and emerged tempered, sharper, steadier, aligned. They assumed shame would silence you. Instead, it awakened conviction. They tried to sever your sense of connection. All it did was teach you to listen to the whisper of divine direction. They hoped to shrink you, but you expanded. They counted on your collapse, but you revealed your architecture was never built to break. You just passed through an invisible gauntlet most never even realize exists, and you didn't just survive it. You graduated from it. Step beyond the screen. Join and help light the way for others. There are those who emerge from the storm not by chance, but because the storm itself couldn't claim them. When forces conspire with precision to dismantle the core of someone's spirit and fail, a seismic realignment takes place, seen and unseen. That escape was never just about endurance. It was an unlocking. What tried to render one invisible has instead cast a spotlight so fierce it blinds those who stare too long. In the ashes of what was meant to erase you, something ancient and unshakable has been revived. This awakening isn't private. It echoes through every path crossed, every soul drawn near. One's refusal to bend has become a force that splinters the very tools of their opposition. Where betrayal tried to plant ruin, it now blooms with proof. Protection answers intention, and intention cannot be faked. What they attempted to gather as a trophy of conquest has turned to mirror shards in their hands. There are energies that do not surrender, not because they are stubborn, but because they are aligned with a frequency too vast for domination. That resistance wasn't noise, it was declaration. Every ill word cast, every maneuver disguised in charm or tradition, every shadow move cloaked in fake light now finds itself exposed under an unblinking, burning truth. This path isn't one of revenge, it is revelation. And the ones who moved against this light will now face the echo of their own choices, unsoftened. The passage forward must be walked with quiet certainty. The air may feel colder, the smiles more curated, but this is not a call to isolation. It's a call to refined clarity. Invitations will come cloaked in nostalgia, sweetness, or false rebirth. Let clarity sift them. Let wisdom be your filter, not fear. Power attracts pressure. That is the rule of currents. But what they tried to strike down is the very thing that makes the ground grow fertile for others. That fire they aim to snuff is now a signal for those still in the dark. The very qualities labeled too much are the medicine the world forgot how to ask for. Don't silence them. Don't dull your edge to soothe the ones who cut. Expand, speak, rise with full volume. You are not here to apologize for the weight of your presence. Every attempt to collapse your path only reveals how necessary your rise truly is. This isn't survival anymore, this is ignition. And the ones who poke the flame now witness the wildfire.